G'day, I'm Paul. Have you got a Toyota LandCruiser on order? And are you waiting forever for it? Probably, a lot of you are. Have you thought about just cancelling the order and buying one of these instead? Well, Nissan has just updated the Patrol ever so slightly, but I thought we'd revisit it because we haven't driven this for a couple of years now, and I don't know, I think it's still an enticing proposition. This one here is the top spec Nissan Patrol TIL. It's priced at a little under $100,000, but if that's too expensive, the entire range kicks off at a little over 80 grand. This competes with things like the Toyota LandCruiser 300 series, the Land Rover Discovery. There really aren't too many big 7-seat off-road capable options in this segment, so you are fairly limited there if you do want the towing capacity as well. Today we're going to do a detailed review of this car, so if you do want to skip ahead to other parts of the review, you can use the time codes on the screen, or if you're on YouTube, you can scroll down and use the chapters. And if you want to help us grow, please subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon. That'll tell you every single time we drive a big old beast like this. Now, normally you guys accuse me of towering over these cars, but this one is well and truly taller than I am. Patrol, it's available in 6 colours and all but like a gun metallic, $650 extra. What has changed? Not much, but that's not such a bad thing. They've gone with a new Nissan logo here, and I think it's just the entry level that gets a different coloured grille, and there's a new side flank that I'll show you as well. I still think this looks really good. They sort of changed the design a little bit a couple of years ago, and look, I think that this update really just gives it a bit of a refresh. The interior is still identical, which we'll get to later on, but from an outside point of view, it looks really nice and stylish, but also very capable off-road. So down here, you've got some radar equipment. You've got cooling for that big naturally aspirated V8. Chrome lashings around the outside. I mentioned that new Nissan logo. We have full LED headlights with an LED daytime running light and an LED indicator as well. Fog lights down the bottom, headlight washers. So I've mentioned this in our other off-road reviews. Really important because if you do get mud and sort of yucky water coming in through the bonnet here and covering the headlights, you can't see anything. So this blasts all of that out of the way. Come around to the side. 18-inch alloy wheels on an all-terrain tyre, so no flared wheel arches or any sort of that fancy stuff. So Nissan really has positioned this as, yes, a road-focused big SUV, but also one that can go off-road, and fitting this with all-terrain tyres really just sort of confirms that. V8 there, because it is a petrol V8. This is the new thing on the side. You can take or leave that, but it's different. You've got an indicator built into that wing mirror, a camera here as well for the 360 camera. Side steps, they don't stick out too much. They're sort of just a little tucked into the side there. You will notice when you get into this, even at my height, I do have to kind of lift myself onto the seat. So you're probably going to be using these a fair bit to get in and out if you are a shorter person. Privacy glass, you've got roof rails up the top there and then whip around to the rear. Now around the back here, we have a set of LED tail lights. These have a progressive indicator in them as well, so they look kind of cool when you pop that indicator on. More chrome along the back there, a new Nissan logo. Now buried just in here is the camera for the rear view mirror. Sort of neatly positioned there, and it's within range of the wiper as well. So if it does get dirty, that's easy to get cleaned. Brake light up the top there, and then you have a big old exhaust pipe hidden under there. Now, what do you think about the Patrol's design? Do you reckon it's starting to look a little bit dated? I still think it looks good on the outside, but I am keen for your feedback, so let me know in the comments section. So we're inside the Patrol. We'll start off with the key. You've got the new Nissan logo up the top there. Lock, unlock, boot, panic. Then on the back, it is blank. It's a proximity sensing key, so you can leave that in your pocket, and then you have a push button start up the front here. Well, this certainly looks dated, doesn't it? I haven't seen wood grain like this for quite some time. In fact, I think it was the Toyota Prado was probably the last car I've seen with this style of sort of old school grandparent-esque wood grain. So yeah, this is comprehensively dated, and it's disappointing because the Patrol and the overseas version of the Patrol in other countries got a pretty cool looking infotainment update and just a general interior refresh not that long ago. And I think if they made that interior in this car, you would just have no reason to buy a LandCruiser. So yeah, I wish they would do that, but they're not going to. It's a lot of money to do it for right-hand drive particularly. So I think we'll be stuck with this for a little while. So Anyway, now in terms of the materials though, if you do look up the top of the dashboard and down the sides here, it is actually all quite soft touch. It's got that old school sort of leatherette appearance, and that means that all of the surfaces that you're resting on are pretty soft, including your touch points here on the center console and the door. How soft are they? Well, we've got our durometer. We've tested the main surfaces in this cabin. If you want to see how this car compares to others, have a look at the link in the description. Build quality, let's have a look. It all feels really, really, really solid. And our door test, that is really nice and solid. Let's talk infotainment. So, 8-inch infotainment screen. It's a touch screen, but it also has shortcut buttons just beneath it, with further shortcut buttons beneath that for the audio. It's pretty basic. It doesn't have any smartphone mirroring at all, so no Apple CarPlay, no Android Auto. It also only has AM and FM radio, no DAB digital, but it is plumbed through a 13-speaker Bose branded sound system. Good sound system. Yeah, look, outside of that, it's just pretty basic. It doesn't really do anything all that well. It's a little bit slow and laggy, and there isn't really a great deal you can do with it. There are some interesting menus here under driving performance. So this gives you stuff like a G meter, your fuel consumption, a lot is the answer to that. Fuel flow, what else we got here? Range. So it isn't anything sort of too special, but it does have slightly more, I guess, ability than just a standard satellite navigation system, and you have a CD player as well. Ahead of the driver is a tiny little screen that just gives you basic trip computer information, but outside of that, the tech here inside the cabin is very basic. Let's talk about safety tech. So you have autonomous emergency braking, you have a lane departure warning, you have a radar, cruise control, a blind spot monitor built into this little section just here, rear cross traffic alert, the mirror. Now, it is just a standard mirror, but with the flick of a switch, it becomes a digital mirror as well, which I quite like the look of. And then finally, your parking scenario. So you have front and rear parking sensors and a 360 camera. I'll show you what that looks like. There it is. So look, quality isn't amazing. It's pretty low resolution on a small screen, which is a low resolution screen to start with. So the top down view isn't amazing, but you can switch between different views. So you can see the front side there, and then you can also do your rear view as well. So look, this is pretty handy for off-road driving, simply because you're going to be able to select a view here to see exactly what the wheels are doing. So I guess that is one of the benefits of this, but in terms of it being a 360 camera, it is pretty low resolution. Now moving on to practicality, and we'll start off with your connectivity. So you have two USB ports down the front here and a 12-volt outlet, another 12-volt here, no wireless phone charging, no smartphone mirroring like I mentioned before. Where do you store your phone? Well, there are plenty of little storage nooks around the place, so you can whack it in there, you can whack it in there. There's another one down here as well, so plenty of spots to put things. Now, what about your coffee cup? Well, fits in there without any problems and easy to lift. Bottle storage, so bottles easily fit in there, but there are no teeth, so they do move around a little bit. That bottle fits inside the door as well. Plus, there is a chilled center section here that can chill your bottles or drinks. Big bottle, let's see if that fits. Doesn't quite fit in there, but fits inside the door without any problems at all. In terms of other storage, so I mentioned here, this is a fridge, so you just flick that switch and it comes on. But when it's not being used as a fridge, you can just use it as standard storage, which is pretty good. Over here we have a glove box that is really big as well. Everything in this car is big, so it kind of makes sense. And then finally we have a sunglasses holder up the top. Moving on to comfort, so you have dual zone automatic climate control up the front here. You have heated and cooled seats. You have electric seat adjustment, so you can go forwards, backwards. Backrest can go forwards, backwards. You can lift the base of the seat. You can also adjust your bolster as well. Also got memory up the top here for the driver. In terms of the seats themselves, these are very comfy. They hug you in nicely, and it is just a great place to be seated for a long distance drive. They're also kind of cool looking as well. You've got this brown stitching and then the brown sections on the outer edge of the bolster there, and then perforations there for the cooling. Now, in terms of your steering wheel adjustment, it is electric, so it goes in and out and then up and down. And finally, our reach test. Look, it is pretty tricky to reach some of this stuff while you're driving, so all of this is okay. This is a bit of a stretch, and then getting to the screen is even more of a stretch, especially if you are a shorter person. So a little bit of a challenge, but you know, for the most part, it's okay. So second row of the Patrol, no surprises here. I have acres of legroom. Have a look at that. Heaps of tow room. Headroom is excellent too. It's actually a really nice place to be stretched out. You've got that soft touch finish on the side there, and I have heaps of width as well. In terms of your other creature comforts, you've got map pockets in the back of the seats. This is where your third zone of climate control is. You've got controls here for your audio, which I'll run through in just a second. 2 USB ports for charging. A little further down, you've got a 12-volt outlet plus a HDMI and a USB port for your infotainment system back here. It's all driven by this remote control. It's not a touch screen, but it allows you to select your source, being the front DVD player, rear USB or HDMI, and then you have headphones that you pop on your head to have a listen to all that stuff. In terms of your additional storage, you've got a center console here, 2 cup holders in that fits your bottle in without any dramas. Bottle fits inside the door as well. I think it's also worth pointing out that this center console here opens both ways, so you can put drinks into there if you want from the back seat. If you're carrying kids, you have ISOFIX points on the 2 outboard seats, plus top tether points for the second row and one of the seats in the third row. And finally, our window test. Boom, look at that, all the way down, very impressive. I should also point out as well that we actually have air vents up the top here as well. Now let's talk about third row of the Patrol. It is an enormous vehicle, so surely there will be enough room in there for adults. These seats don't slide, all they do is tumble forward. So you just pop it down like that and then you work your way into there. So let's give this a shot. All right, we are in. I'm gonna drop this down. I'm going to bring this back as well so you can see how much leg room I've got. So look, tow room is not great. It's okay, it's not terrible, but knee room is very average. I'm sort of well and truly wedged into that seat. Headroom is okay, but I guess my head is touching the roof there. So yeah, I'm surprised. I thought there'd be more room back here. I did notice with the 300 series LandCruiser, that was really, really cramped compared to this. This is still pretty cramped, but you can adjust the seat if required a little bit, but there isn't really a great deal of room there. In terms of your creature comfort, so you have cup holders on both sides and air vents up the top, and that is about it. Oh, plus grab handles as well, which is handy if you're stuck in the back here while you are driving off-road. Let's talk cargo capacity. So it's a powered tailgate, a very slow powered tailgate. But the good news with this is the size means you actually have stacks of boot room here behind the third row. If you picture something like a Ford Everest or a Pajero Sport, you have barely any room here when you have a third row up. This, on the other hand, is just under 500 litres, which is pretty impressive. Beneath the cargo floor, you've got a little bit more storage, and then beneath that is where you'll find your jack and other bits and pieces. You've got hooks off to the side, plus a 12-volt outlet too. Show you what it looks like with our bags in here behind the third row. So they fit perfectly without any problems at all. What we can then do to expand the space is drop our third row down. So it's all manual here, no electronic business. Once that's dropped down, you have a little under 1,500 litres of cargo space. What that looks like with bags in there. There it is. And then if you do want to expand that even more, you can drop the second row. So by folding both of these down, that expands the space to just over 2,500 litres. Now, it isn't completely flat right now, but what you can do is return these back to this position, and then you have, I guess, an inclining flat load floor to work with. So I've just hit the road in the Patrol. So unlike most other SUVs in this segment that use a diesel, this Patrol is naturally aspirated, and it's a V8. So it's a 5.6 litre naturally aspirated V8, makes just under 300 kilowatts of power and a little over 550 Newton meters of torque. That's all mated to a 7-speed automatic transmission. Now, what does that feel like behind the wheel? I'll give it a little poke here. Yeah, that feels good, and it makes a big old racket as well. Such a good sound. And look, diesels have improved in terms of the noise that they make, but this is just on another level in terms of excitement and just putting a big smile on your face. And it all translates behind the wheel. Just when you're getting stuck into it, it has plenty of feedback. It's nice and eager to respond, and it's just confidence inspiring. So if you're doing stuff like overtaking and you need to get up and move pretty quickly, it's just going to get the job done without any fuss at all. And that's what you need. You don't need to wait for a laggy diesel to get up and moving. This really just goes bang and away we go. let's talk fuel economy. So this probably isn't going to be a nice discussion with the current state of fuel prices, but the official fuel economy is 14.4 litres per 100 Ks. We're currently sitting on 15.6. So yeah, that is obviously higher than the claim. And look, to be honest, if you're driving this in and around the city, that's exactly what's going to happen. You're moving a vehicle that weighs almost 2.8 tonnes. And using a naturally aspirated V8, it is going to chew through the fuel if you do slow speed driving. But if you're out on the highway and towing while you're out on the highway, that's where this is really going to be in its element, and it will be sleeping most of the time instead of chewing through fuel. Despite the fuel consumption being fairly sort of big, you do have a decent sized fuel tank, so it's 140 litres, so it does mean that you won't be stopping all the time to refill it, which I guess is one side benefit of having such a big vehicle like this. How quick is the Patrol from 0 to 100? Well, we don't have an official figure, but this is how it went up against our stopwatch. What about the ride? Now, this is the thing that Nissan has really nailed with this. They did a ride revision recently with one of the other updates, and they've just smoothed it out nicely, so it now cruises over some of these roads with a whole lot more ease. The old one just, I don't know, it just didn't really feel all that confidence inspiring, whereas right now, if you drop a wheel off the edge, or if you're hitting some of these cobblestones on country roads and the continuous undulations, this really feels in its element. Kind of feels like the LandCruiser. It feels like it's been properly tuned for Australian roads, and certainly once you do load it up, or if you are towing, it just feels a lot more sensible behind the wheel. What about your road noise? Well, it's pretty silent in here. I've got to say, they've done a really good job insulating the road noise, especially when you are driving on all-terrain tyres. They tend to produce a little bit more road noise, but it's quite sort of subdued in here, and if you are doing a longer distance drive, it's not going to drive you mad. Now, what does it feel like through a corner here? Let's give it a little kick as it arcs up and makes some noise. Oh, it does feel big on the road. There's absolutely no denying that. But when you do get stuck into it, it picks up and it absolutely hauls. It's actually really impressive how fast it moves once you really commit to the throttle. One thing I will point out, steering feel isn't really amazing. So they still use a hydraulically assisted steering rack, and the feel about center isn't amazing. I guess that's one of the penalties that you have. Surprisingly though, the turning circle isn't all that bad, 12.5 metres, which is pretty good for a car this size. Normally you'd be looking at 13 or 14 metres at a minimum when you look at the size of this thing. In terms of visibility, yes, this is a whopper of a machine. So down the front there, you can clearly see the edges of the bonnet. They're big wing mirrors as well, so you don't really lose anything within them. Visibility out the back is good, but if you do have that third row up, it will be somewhat limited. But do keep in mind you have this here, which allows you to switch on the digital camera from the rear. So if you don't have great visibility because you're riding 3 rows up, you can just go to this mode and you're able to easily see out the back. Now let's do a little bit of light off-roading, and I'll run you through the 4-wheel drive specs first. There is a lot going on here. In terms of the actual numbers though, you have just over 270 millimeters of ground clearance, which is pretty damn impressive. You have an approach angle of 28 degrees and a departure angle of 26.3 degrees. They are the angles you can approach at the front and the back of the car before you hit anything. And then you have a wading depth of 700 millimeters. And keep in mind, you can get a snorkel for these as well. In terms of the actual 4-wheel drive equipment, you have a hill descent control, a low range transfer case, you have a rear differential lock, plus a few 4-wheel drive modes that tailor the stability control to what you're doing. So let's give this a little shot here. Oh, by the way, if none of that makes any sense to you, click up here to watch a video we shot before where we explain 4-wheel drive controls. Now we have a small change to our 4-wheel drive course here. On the logs, what I'm actually doing now is resting it on one of the hurdle logs, and then what I'll do is bring the car to a full rest and then allow the car to sort itself out in terms of its traction controls. Okay, there it is there. We're on our little ledge. I've got it in 4 high. We're in rock mode. Let's see what happens. I'll just lean on the throttle. Oh, piece of cake. That is really impressive. I have driven other cars up here that have struggled on that little ledge, whereas this just walks up without any problems at all. Yes, it is dry today, but I think it does show you just how good the 4-wheel drive system is in the Patrol. And then we'll test hill descent control on the way down here as well. Here we go, pop hill descent control on. Wow, it's noisy. Making a ton of noise, but it's doing the job really well. Let's It's coming down at a nice pace. Everything sort of feels nice and controlled on the descent. So there you go, that is really impressive. So yeah, big tick there with that basic four-wheel driving stuff. Let's head over to our offset mogul. We'll see how it goes through there. Okay, let's head through our offset mogul. First we've got our little seesaw section here. We get thrown to the side. The annoying parking sensors that I can't seem to switch off. Okay, so the purpose of the offset mogul is for us to reach full wheel articulation and then see how the car copes with a wheel being entirely lifted off the ground. Now this has a stack of articulation, so it's actually going to be pretty tricky to get a wheel lifted off the ground, but I think we're almost there, a little bit further. There it is. So we're just off the ground there. We've got it in 4 high. I'll just let off the brake now and ease onto the throttle. Okay, there we go. So I can hear the car trying to figure out what to do. It's shaking a little bit, traction control's doing its thing, and then it eases its way out of there. So yeah, look, pretty impressive setup. If I did need to, I could use the rear diff lock there as well. That would easily get us out of that situation. So look, just as a base four-wheel drive, this has a stack of equipment here that's going to allow the layman to just go do some light off-roading like this. That, you know, I think if it's any more serious, any more involved, you're going to have to, you know, put your diff locks on and stuff. But for the most part, this is all pretty straightforward and very easy to use. So the Nissan Patrol, I tell you what, if you did have a LandCruiser on order, I would happily tell you to just cancel the order and buy one of these instead. These have a growing wait list on them now as well, but outside of the infotainment system in the LandCruiser, you really aren't losing anything by going to the Patrol. This does everything that a LandCruiser does, and some things it does even better. I love the engine, it is so nice and smooth. And yes, while it does use more fuel than a LandCruiser does, at the end of the day, you're saving 20 or 30 grand on an equivalent spec of a LandCruiser. So you're gonna easily have more than enough money left over in terms of the fuel difference in the long run as well. And look, some of you have actually said to me, you don't want all the whiz-bang features of a LandCruiser anyway. So I guess it's just more of a reason to go buy this. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Are you a dyed-in-the-wool LandCruiser fan? Will you only buy a LandCruiser? Or have you swapped over and gone to a Patrol? And if you have gone to a Patrol, how's it been? What do you think of it? And how is it on fuel in the long run as well? Let me know in the comments section below. If you did enjoy this video, please make sure you share it with your mates and subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. But until next time, drive safely.